Hi, this is Lisa.
Oh, hi, Lisa. It's Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
Wait, so your name is Lisa Louise?
That's right.
I had a friend who used to call me Lisa Louise.
Oh, really?
What? Yeah, it's just a made-up middle name for me.
Welcome to the Genealogy Gems Podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Lisa Louise Cooke. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone, and thank you so much for taking a few minutes out to listen to the show, where we're going to talk about one of the things we love, and that's genealogy and family history. At the top of the show, you heard a little sneak peek of my Valentine's gift to you. Yep, it's a Lisa Fest here on the Genealogy Gems podcast. In fact, as you heard, you could even say it's a Lisa Louise Fest. Lisa Kudrow is here today to talk about the brand new TV series, Who Do You Think You Are? Now, I know for those of you listening in the UK and some other countries around the world, Who Do You Think You Are isn't exactly new. The UK version has certainly been a huge hit for years, but over here, across the pond in the US, we are celebrating that we are finally going to get our own version. And who better than Lisa Kudrow to bring it to us? She is such a warm, sweet person who, as you will soon hear, is obviously passionate about the show and family history.
I was talking to someone who said, I don't know, a family tree and you see the names and who cares? And it's like, it's not the names. There's a story behind every one of those names and some place in history that we all know about that had a very specific impact on that person.
You can imagine how thrilled I was that she made time in her schedule to talk about the series. In this exclusive interview, you're going to hear about how she really felt about exploring her family's Holocaust story. She shares some of her very candid reactions that you won't see on the show. We also got a chance to talk about how this U.S. version compares to the U.K. version. And as executive producer, she's also going to tell us what she worried about losing in this version, but thankfully, with some help, didn't have to. By now, you've probably already seen some of the video trailers about the show on the Genealogy Gems news blog. And you know that one where she picks up the phone and says to the person on the other end of the line, "I think we're related"? Well, you'll hear first on today's show who she was talking to and how that call came about. Oh, we've got a lot to cover with Lisa, but first I want to hear from you, and that happens next in the mailbox. Gosh, you know what I really love about doing this show is the fact that we get an opportunity for some two-way communication. I just want to mention that, as you know, we do publish an email Genealogy Gems newsletter. That's where you get the scoop on what's coming up on the various podcasts and videos. And of course, we always cover a gem or two. If you enjoy the show, you're definitely going to want to sign up for the newsletter. So just head to the website at genealogygems.tv and click the button over there on the left that says sign up for the newsletter, and we'll get it right out to you. And of course, the bonus is that when you do sign up for the newsletter, you also get my 20-page ebook. It's free. It's called 5 Fabulous Google Research Strategies for the Family Historian, and it's free in your welcome email. If you follow the techniques in the ebook, you will get better results with your Google searches when you're doing your online research. And if by chance, if you've already signed up and you haven't been receiving the newsletter, try this. Be sure and add our email address, genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com, to your email contact list so that your email provider won't think that the emails are spam. They'll know that it's coming from somebody that you know. And for those of you who signed up in person, I know recently we had a lot of signups for the newsletter at the Family History Expo in Mesa, Arizona. If you're not receiving it yet, you should have already gotten some. So if you didn't, we might have had a little bit of trouble reading some of the handwriting and maybe didn't get your email exactly right. So the quickest way to remedy that situation is, and to get the ebook is, again, to go to the website, sign up again, clicking that button, and then also adding our email address to your contact list to ensure delivery. Okay, now I want to say a big thank you to genealogy blogger Joan Miller for her wonderful review of the Genealogy Gems Podcast iPhone app on her blog at luxogen.ca. Sounds like she's enjoying getting the podcast streamed to her phone while she's on the road. So thank you very much, Joan. I really appreciate it. Now, you'll remember the writer of this next email. She's Teri Chaffin, and she's written before. She writes this time, Lisa, the other day while swimming, and yes, Teri has a waterproof MP3 player, and she listens to the podcast while she swims. She says, the other day while I was swimming and listening to your podcast, the thought crossed my mind that wouldn't it be great to get paid to do something you really love? The next thought was, well, why not? I'm a transcriptionist and medical coder, which I do really enjoy. However, I'm about to graduate with my associate degree this spring and was thinking about what to do next. Keep taking random classes? I saw when looking around on the internet that there are classes to become a genealogist. I think this might be an excellent experience. I realize I would probably never be able to make a living doing this in Northwest Iowa. However, I still think it's an avenue I'd like to pursue. Do you have any advice as to any online courses that would be a good choice for this coursework? Thanks, and keep up the great work, Teri Chaffin. Well, Teri, there is a great article in the March 2010 issue of Family Tree magazine, which just came out. The article is called Shaping Up. It's written by Sunny Morton and will give you a great rundown on genealogy educational opportunities, including resources for certification. In the section called Going with the Pros that you'll find there in the article, Sunny recommends the Genealogy and Family History Certificate Program at the Seattle campus of the University of Washington. She also talks about the Certificate in Genealogical Research program at Boston University, and that one I know you can now take online. Also, genealogical certification is offered by two organizations, the Board of Certification of Genealogists and the International Commission for the Accreditation of Professional Genealogists. Neither of them offer training, but the Board of Certification of Genealogists does offer skill building. You can find them at bcgcertification.org/skillbuilders. And of course, I'll have the links to all of those that I just mentioned in the show notes for this episode. You just head to the website, click on podcast, and navigate your way to episode number 81. And I just happened to get an opportunity to also interview Sunny Morton in the February 2010 episode of the Family Tree Magazine podcast, which I also produce every month. So you can check that out at familytreemagazine.com/podcast. And of course, that podcast is also available, free as always, in iTunes. I also have an email here from Patty Mitchell. She writes, I want to thank you for the ticket to Mesa Family History Expo. I know I looked like a drowned cat through a knothole backwards, but it was my first trip after having knee surgery in December. So I tired very fast. Anyway, I stopped at the Ancestry.com table and they had free lookup time on their computers. I wanted to see who posted my grandmother's picture on Ancestry.com, and they helped me find the picture and find a cousin I didn't know I had. But I had met his grandparents when I was a teenager visiting in Kansas. I also got pictures of my great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents that he had, and a lot of other good stuff too. I'm going to go to the family reunion on Memorial Day weekend in Kansas, so thank you so much for everything. Well, thanks, Patty. And, all I noticed was that you looked like you were having a lot of fun at the expo. That's what I saw. It was really nice to meet you in person. And I heard from another listener that I met in person at the Family History Expo last month. That's Michelle Kudrow. She writes, I just wanted to let you know that your presentation on Google Earth at last weekend's Family History Expo in Mesa was awesome. Oh, thank you, Michelle. That's high praise. It was my first time giving it. Oh, and she writes, if you wouldn't have mentioned it, I'd have never guessed that it was your first time presenting that talk. It was, but it was a lot of fun. I was very excited to do it. Michelle writes, I was so excited about it when I got home and shared your tips with my husband, who likes Google Earth but had no idea what it could do. The next time I go hunting for a homestead, I'm going to do it the way you showed us. It's much easier than getting out the old state highway maps, and it also, of course, shows the township range information. Plus, like my hubby pointed out, it would be much more comforting when we are out in the backcountry after riding down 20 miles of dirt roads to have that visual to tell us that, yes, we are on the right track. Also, I told you I was getting ready to start my own blog after listening to your podcasts on blogging from a while back. I listened to Thomas McKentie's talk on Saturday on blogging, and she's referring to the live show that we did at the banquet, so you can listen to that in episode number 79. And she says she listened to his talk on blogging and was so jazzed that I went home and I got it set up. So check it out when you get a chance. The blog address is turning-of-generations.blogspot.com. As always, I'm looking forward to what wonderful new adventures you'll be taking us listeners on in upcoming podcasts. You are a treasure chest of information. Oh, Michelle, you are so sweet. Thank you so much for those kind words. It really means a lot to me. Gosh, you made my day. Now, you know, there are 5 videos that are part of the Genealogy Gems premium membership that actually do cover everything that we covered in class, plus a lot more that we just don't have time to cover in a 1-hour presentation. And I just finished, I'm so excited, video number 6. And I'm telling you, you premium members are going to love this. I was so excited when I figured out the techniques that I share in this video. You know, necessity is the mother of invention, and I was trying to accomplish something in my own research on Google Earth, and I've come up with something that I can't wait to share with all of you. Now, if you remember, you know we've already covered how to use the thousands of historical maps that are available from the David Rumsey collection within Google Earth to help us with everything from identifying old photographs to walking the old streets of centuries gone by. Well, I wanted to do more. I have so many old plat maps from the homesteads of my various ancestors that I've collected over the years. But you have to admit, a plat map is a pretty, one-dimensional view of a particular area. But of course, they do include great information on those maps, like the owner's name sometimes, and even the acreage. Well, in video number 6 of the Google Earth video series, I'm going to show you how to create your own historical map overlays, integrating the maps that you have with Google Earth. It's going to knock your socks off. It knocked my socks off, let me tell you, and I was figuring out how to do it. If you're not a premium member yet, just head to the website, genealogygems.tv, click the Join Today button, and for just one low fee, you get all the videos. And, of course, the current premium podcast episodes that are available. And then for a whole year, all the new podcast episodes and videos every month. So it's a pretty good deal. And if you want your own personal copy of the Google Earth video series that includes those 6 videos, I'm very excited to finally get to announce that they'll soon be available on DVD. This is the first time out doing this, but I know a lot of folks say they'd like to be able to watch it on their television or that kind of thing. So stay tuned. And I should have all the details for you in the next week or so. You know what I've got for you coming up next. Stay tuned. Well, this is going to be a quick introduction because we don't need any more introduction. You know what's coming. It's my conversation with Lisa Kudrow. She is one of the stars of the long-standing hit television series Friends. And of course, she is now launching the U.S. version of the hit TV series from the U.K., Who Do You Think You Are? Here is my conversation with Lisa. It's funny, all the stuff that was going on with the Jay Leno show and the Tonight Show, and you may not have realized it, but the family history community all was sitting there with their fingers crossed, hoping, does this mean that Who Do You Think You Are gets a time slot? How do you feel about the fact that March 5th is just around the corner and it's really going to happen?
Oh, we are so excited. We started seeing promos, and so it's really exciting. And we're starting to hear from a lot of people who are, oh my God, that looks so good. I can't wait.
Oh, I think it's going to be terrific. I wanted to ask you, first off, how did you end up taking on Who Do You Think You Are? I mean, it was a huge hit in Great Britain. What drew you to it for a project for you?
I didn't know it was a huge hit. I was working in Ireland a few years ago. And at night, after work, watching TV, and I saw an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? And I didn't know the person who was the subject, but I was riveted, and then found out, it's a famous person. Oh, I see the way they're talking. Okay, so he's famous. and then saw that Jeremy Irons had done one, and then whenever I could, I wanted to get home in time to see that show, whatever it's called, and whenever it's on,
Yeah.
I just got hooked. It was so compelling to me that, events in history that we all know about, but don't know about in great detail, but the details are what actually impacted these family lines and sent them in all kinds of directions, and then ended up with who this person is right now.
Exactly.
That's what is so fascinating. I mean, I was talking to someone who said, I don't know, a family tree, and you see the names, and who cares? And it's like, it's not the names. There's a story behind every one of those names, and some place in history that we all know about that had a very specific impact on that person.
You're absolutely right. At first glance, listening to somebody else's family history doesn't seem that intriguing, but everybody loves a good story, right?
Right. Oh, yes. I mean, number one, it's done very well. There's so much drama in these stories.
Yeah.
And they know how to just allow it to unfold, And also just we are all connected through history.
And even the peasant in our background still was making his mark and making a difference and helping to build the nations that exist today.
Mm-hmm.
So now what's interesting is I know that you're co-producing it, but you were also a participant on the show, weren't you?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so you got firsthand experience of what your participants were going through. How was that experience for you personally?
It was hard. Because for me personally, I don't like traveling. That's number one. Just on that level, it was hard.
Oh, yeah.
And also, mine was a Holocaust story, and I really never wanted to go any deeper than reading in books about things that happened. I wasn't eager to feel the pain of knowing details about what happened to actual relatives.
Yeah.
Because I'm not good at facing that stuff. So it made me nervous. That made me really nervous. But I'm glad I did it.
I was thinking about it. Obviously as an actress, you're really used to just going outside of yourself and kind of embodying another character. But in this case, wow, you're standing in front of the camera and you're you. You're Lisa Kudrow, and so all the feelings and all the reactions are you.
Right.
That must have felt very revealing.
Well, one thing that made me feel good about it was, knowing how they do the UK version. That's how we did this. If you're not comfortable at any time, you just turn away from the camera, and they're not going to hunt you down.
Yeah.
And I did have to do that at one point. And it doesn't look like that's what I did, but I had to just turn away. Because it was too overwhelming, and I just didn't feel like falling apart that much.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine.
Too intimate,
It's a very personal experience. Which family line? Was this your mother's line or your father's line that you were researching?
It was my father's line and his maternal line.
Okay, great.
My paternal grandmother's family.
Yeah. One of the things as I was watching the trailer and I was watching your segment and I was thinking, so many of us who do family history, we're doing it over months and years, and you get this chance to kind of just ease into what you're learning, and the story just unfolds. But I would imagine this is all kind of hyper speed. You guys were really immersed and kind of hit head on with everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's not that quick, but it's pretty quick in mine. They were still doing research while I was on the road.
Wow.
Yeah. They were finding things out every day.
That's amazing.
So, and that was mine. And there's still more to do for sure. It's not actually an hour's worth of show, and even that wouldn't have been enough.
Yeah.
A lot of our subjects, to be honest with you, there were some painful cuts. I felt like, in these episodes.
Oh, that's got to be the hardest part, is what to take out, because you've only got so many minutes. I assume we're talking an hour episode each, right?
Right. Yes, and on network television, of course, that's like 42 minutes. Then you have the coming ups and the recaps, and, it really ends up being about 40 minutes.
Wow,
so that's
compressed.
20 minutes of story and information that the UK version has.
Yeah, exactly, because they're not dealing with all the commercial interruptions, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
But it's still good, and it moves along, and, then I watch it, and I don't really feel like I'm missing anything,
Yeah. Do you feel like that your U.S. version is pretty similar to the approach that they're taking in the UK?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's the same. It had to be paced up a little, and the UK version. I was surprised we got to tell as much history as we did in our episodes.
Yeah,
because I don't know if you've seen the UK version or not.
Yeah, and they do. They take their time and they move at a pace that I would imagine, like you say, probably gets picked up a bit here for the U.S. audience.
Yeah, and because I thought originally that we wouldn't be able to have our narrator tell as much of the history as we'd like. In the UK, they go off for a little while and tell you, there's historical information, but it's not really history, it's backstory.
Yeah.
Or the characters that we're becoming invested in, and you need to know what was going on at the time to explain some of the things that happened to them.
Was that a hesitancy on the network's part to not want to overdo the history side?
Well, yes and no. I mean, at first, I think we were told, easy on the history, and then I think too much was taken out, and then to the network's credit, it was, oh, no, we need that,
Yeah.
Don't take that away. But, but I mean, it's really, honest to God, it's necessary backstory so that you understand the environment that these people lived in and the events that led to, the important parts of their lives that, ultimately end up with Susan Sarandon or Brooke Shields being born. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Or the subject who's looking at it. Or you or me. I mean, none of us would be here if it wasn't for, certain events in history.
Well, I think what's really neat, too, about the show and the way you're going about it is that one of the things that a genealogist tries to explain to a non-genealogist is it's not just names and dates. Mm-hmm. It's just the context and the story, like you say, and the fact that these are real people, mm-hmm. and you guys are really bringing them to life. I noticed in one of the trailers that I don't know if you're in Belarus at the time, but you picked up the phone and you were calling a relative that you didn't know. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was in Poland.
Okay.
Because I was looking to see, there was a relative in 1947, a cousin had come to, it's in the episode, he had come to see my father and my grandmother and her sister, and all the cousins. And, they were so happy to see him, and he told them what had happened in Ilya, what had happened to their mother, my great-grandmother, that, they'd been shot. Everyone was dead. And, they begged him to stay because he was on a Polish ship. And they begged him to stay because they knew that, he was in danger. Because I think, Jews were still getting killed in Poland after World War II.
Yeah.
So they were worried for him, and he wasn't worried for himself. I don't think he told them, but I don't know, he wasn't worried for himself. So he left. They never saw him again. And then somehow my father remembers hearing that he died. So after Belarus, and I saw where my great-grandmother had been killed, the whole village, where that massacre took place. Then we went to Poland to find out what happened to this relative. My father remembers his name was Yuri. And so that's where I was, looking for him. And so I was calling a relative.
Wow. That's amazing.
Find out what happened to him.
Yeah, and it's such a tragic story, and yet that wasn't centuries ago. That was just decades ago. That must have just been so eerie. And so close to home, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, that was eerie. It was really difficult, tough. Not an easy trip.
Yeah.
Especially for me, because like I said, I like to pretend like the bad stuff maybe didn't happen.
Yeah. And yet, gosh, so critical, I guess, for future generations that these stories are getting told so that people don't forget, that we never run that risk of things like that happening again.
Right. I mean, to be fair to myself, even, I do know those things happen. I mean, I knew it too well from an early age about the Holocaust. And I knew what happened, but I didn't want to explore it in great detail. I mean, I knew it, and then I didn't want to imagine details because it's too overwhelming to me.
Now that makes me wonder, have your parents seen your episodes yet? And have you talked to them?
Yeah, they've seen it. Yeah, my father participated in it.
Excellent.
In fact, so, and he's, a genealogist. He's the genealogist of the family. He spent years at the Mormon, the Mormon temple library gathering information.
And was he surprised? Were things discovered that he hadn't found yet?
Yes, he was surprised because he was so thorough that our researchers almost felt like, I don't know if we can do a story because he's done it. I mean, he knows everything. And
wow.
She knows everything. I don't know if there's anything to reveal to her.
Yeah.
But there was. There really, really was.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him, I mean, it's even closer to home for him, but I imagine as a genealogist, he was probably thrilled at the opportunity and likes the fact that you're doing this kind of a show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is. He's thrilled. And he loves the show. I was showing him the UK episodes. He's like, well, I don't know how this is going to work in this country. I mean, this is phenomenally good. And, geez, you're going to have to change it.
It is so much fun to finally get to hear from Lisa Kudrow herself about this series and all the things that went into it. I love hearing the behind-the-scenes story and also her personal impressions. Got a lot more for you, but I want to remind you that this exclusive interview is made possible in part by RootsMagic. RootsMagic.com has joined us as a sponsor of this podcast series, and I couldn't be happier. As you know, RootsMagic makes a fantastic genealogy database, RootsMagic 4. It's all revamped, fine-tuned. You're going to love it. But they also do have other programs as well that you want to take a look at. If you head to rootsmagic.com, you can not only sign up for the free RootsMagic Essentials to give it a test drive, but you'll also find that they have other terrific products that really complement that database. Personal Historian helps you write the story of your life and other individuals in your family. And of course, there's Family Atlas, which is a really fun and easy way to map out your family history. And finally, Family Reunion Organizer guides you from start to finish to plan those really important get-togethers. You can really tell that the folks at RootsMagic, led by the president and founder, Bruce Busby, are absolutely passionate about family history, and they really have provided an entire suite of tools that help you get the most out of your research, take good care of it, share it with other people. Phenomenal products. So check them out. It's software to unite families, and you'll find it at rootsmagic.com. Now, as Lisa and I continued our conversation, of course, I'm a mom and she's a mom, and I wanted to find out about her son's interest in the show. That's one of the challenges, right? It's interesting. It's getting the interest of the younger generation, making sure that they take good care of this legacy of information that we're finding, and also talk to her about what are the next steps for her. We know that her father has been quite an accomplished genealogist, and I was kind of curious to find out what she might be doing next in that vein. Also, she's going to talk about Sarah Jessica Parker, how she felt about having her family history explored and whether she thought that they'd find anything. She also talks about her father's family, and this is stuff that didn't make it into the show, so this will be exclusive right here in this interview. And she covers the bottom line, what she really walked away from the show understanding about herself and her family. Isn't that true? We all learn something more about ourselves as we explore our family history, and Lisa certainly experienced that herself. So let's head back to the interview and hear from Lisa. I was thinking about, I remember the moment that it hit me. I've been, working on my family tree for a long time, and it hit me one day that this wasn't just my family tree, but this was my children's heritage.
Right.
And that it's something that I could leave as a legacy. Now, I know you have a son, Julian.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what does he think of your discoveries? Is he interested in the family history?
He's not very interested. He was interested in, he saw parts of the show and then he'd wander off because, there's nothing to build or destroy or no chase scene. But, and also he's kind of young for some of it, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe not at 11, but, no, but what he did take away from it was, I hate Hitler so much. That's, the worst person that's ever lived.
Yeah.
So he did understand that.
I suppose from Granddad, he was already familiar with some of the history anyway.
Not really.
No?
No, because, their relationship was, fun and stories and, and I don't know, maybe this is unfair, but in my experience, boys, especially young boys, are not that interested.
Yeah.
In family stories or how'd you meet? He really doesn't care. Because it doesn't have to do with him.
Yeah.
Right now. So, but he will have it. He'll have it. I want to work on my husband's side now.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. That's the other side of Julian's tree is your husband's side.
Right. It's a very rich, that's what thrills me, is that my son has this very rich family background. It's just, that's what's exciting.
Yeah. Now, your husband's French?
He's French. Mm-hmm.
So chances are you may have, I think they kept very good records, and oftentimes generations were in the same village in France. Do you think he's primarily from France, or are you going to have to move into other countries as well?
I think primarily France. The last name is Stern, so, and his father's from the Alsace area. So, yeah. And his mother's side, yeah, that's probably the same place forever.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know, but yeah, I'm sure there are church records and, it is exciting. My husband, he's like, okay, if you want to. It's weird. Either you're interested in it or you aren't. And yet he was interested in, like say Matthew Broderick's episode was so captivating to him. He's like, this is actual important information that changes. This is information that needs to go into the history books now. It makes a difference now. You know?
I was thinking about Matthew Broderick's episode when you were talking about Julian, because it was Civil War oriented, wasn't it? There's some wars and some things going on that might interest the men.
Yeah. No, he was fascinated, and the first part was World War I, which was all in France. And Matthew didn't even know his grandfather served in France, really?
Wow.
Well, yeah, he spent a few years there, and he goes there, and he finds out he didn't know what he did there. And he finds out what he did, and, what he accomplished.
Yeah.
He never, ever spoke about it. And Matthew never even met him. But it's his father's father, and that means something to him. And, yeah, and then the Civil War, he, because of this search, there's a 150-year-old mystery that gets solved.
Oh, my gosh.
Which is why my husband said, but that's important. That's great. In Brooke Shields' episode, he was like, well, but look at this. This is real, historical significance, a place in history that's unrivaled. My God,
Yeah.
He said, and yours is, God, it's rather a disappointment, don't you think? Well, okay.
He sounds like my husband. My husband, I don't know if he's ever listened to my podcast, but he'll listen to other podcasts.
Oh, right. See?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's too close to home, to all the boring stuff. And I was wondering, you were saying that for some people it's riveting, for other people it's not. Did you have any of the celebrities? I know was 7 episodes probably initially. Were any of them kind of like, oh, well, if you want to, that's fine, but not that personally interested, and then just turned on a dime and went, holy cow, look at what they just found?
Well, it's sort of a commitment, so I don't think anyone went into it too cavalierly.
Yeah.
But, I think people were sort of like, well, good luck finding, like Sarah Jessica was, well, good luck finding anything, or anything interesting for that matter. And it was like a jackpot.
Yeah. I've heard that her episode is very riveting.
It is.
Yeah.
It just is. It opens, first thing practically we see is her and her brother saying, well, I don't think we're going to find any real American roots, nothing, that's going to have any impact on American history because, dad's side is Jewish and the mother's side is German, and fairly recent German immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
So they even make a joke about, we're going to find someone from the Mayflower? I don't think so, not our family.
I think people forget that there are so many branches, and it multiplies really quick as you go back a couple generations.
It's true, because you only know the loudest voice of any couple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if that's, the German grandfather, and he's talking about his family and his people, his mother, who was, American, is not included in the stories.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
well, and I think a lot of folks who think of themselves as just Americans, very quickly you end up over to the old country.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's the other nice thing is, it didn't make it in, but we were looking at my father's father as well.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make it into the show. But, just the love for this country is something that you see pretty quickly, that they get here and then immediately join the army, or sign up for World War I.
Isn't that amazing how much allegiance they had? And when you look at, if I actually think about going through the steps like my great-grandparents did, I don't know if I could have handled it. On those boats and just the journey was incredible.
Right. But we've got it so easy. That's the one thing that struck me doing this is, God, has there ever been a time in the world where you could be in a place it's so easy?
Mm-hmm.
Life is so easy, knock wood.
I bet you got home from Belarus and just grabbed your husband and son and got a big hug.
Well, it was, it was like two very strong feelings. One of them is how lucky, and it can turn on a dime.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm interested too. Now that you've wrapped up your episode and this show is going to get going on television, has the experience so far changed your perspective at all on family or yourself personally?
I feel like I have some more insights into myself and how I cope with things or don't cope with things, just because of the, I'm not sure. I think we end up inheriting our family's past, whether we know it or not, whether you like it or not. If, my grandmother was in pogroms and survived those and then made it out here and was on her own on that boat for, those months, and then all the disappointments she had here, that informed the way she parented my father and behaved with me, all those things. All of that, it can turn on a dime stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a personality trait that I inherited, of a worrisome person, as opposed to a very cavalier person. Okay, it happened and now it's over. I don't, there's, that's not us so much. So it's interesting to see all of that and see what the events were and see if it fits into.
Well, I imagine it fosters more compassion for those folks in our family who we maybe didn't quite get where they were coming from, and then you go, "Wow, I can."
Yes,
I can appreciate
that. It absolutely did that.
Yeah,
and it absolutely did that for me with my grandmother. For whatever reason, as a kid, I thought, all right, so you had a son that died, and then your husband died, and then you had a daughter who died, and life was tough, but that happened to a lot of people, didn't it?
Oh, wow, yeah.
And, oh my God, the most callous person in the world. And, then once you examine it a little more carefully, and you find out, well, your mom and dad, when you're a kid, well, your mom and dad were killed. Okay, yeah, doesn't that happen? You're old.
Yeah.
You can't expect to have your parents now anyway, right? That's why, for kids, it's all like, that's okay. It's all okay.
But you're really summing up the whole concept I was thinking about, which is that it broadens you as a person, in that there's no way you can really even fathom some of that if you're just focused inward. When you start focusing outward to the others who came, it really broadens your compassion and just who you are as a person, how you see the world.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, you can't help but ask, well, how would I have coped with that?
Yeah.
Once you start finding stuff out.
Do you find yourself looking inward saying, well, if things get tough again, you come from pretty good stock, right? Some pretty tough people. So you can handle pretty much anything.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, that's true for Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the things about being an American, is everyone came from somewhere and had to endure something.
Absolutely.
Or is that being, maybe that's not fair. That's every country has suffered hardship, so it's not the only one.
Oh, it's not just for us. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I don't know if you are aware of it, but you have this legion of people all around the country who are so stoked for this show, who are absolutely behind you 110% and want to see it succeed because they really want to see more stories. When do you find out? You air the first 7 episodes. How do you know when it gets picked up and if we'll continue to see it in the fall?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how it works, to be honest with you. I don't know at what point the network will say the numbers aren't high enough.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, we can do another one. Start casting. Yeah. So we need people to watch for sure.
Well,
so Fridays at 8 o'clock.
Fridays at 8 o'clock on NBC. March 5th. And that just follows up right after the Olympics, right?
March 5th, yeah. It's, I think, that first week after the Olympics.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you again. And I have to tell you, when I told my daughters that you were going to be on the show, they thought that was cool and everything. And, of course, you know what you're famous for in our house.
Friends?
No, it's not Friends.
Oh.
Romy and Michelle.
Oh, Romy and Michelle.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, of course.
Every time.
Daughters, I should have known. And
when I bring home something, some great deal I bought, they just look me in the eye and they go, "You paid a whole $1 for that?" So that we love that show, and what a fantastic movie. I bet you had a blast making it.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really fun. And I'm good friends with Robin Shipp, who wrote and produced it. She's hilarious. Yep.
Well, maybe they should have the 50th reunion down the road. Oh, Lisa, thank you so much for giving us a call and being on the show. We are behind you, girl. We're going to make sure everybody's watching.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. Yeah, because we want to do more.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Lisa is wonderful, isn't she? She's a joy to talk to. We had a great time, and I really appreciate her taking the time out to come on the show. I know she really wanted to because she wanted to speak to you, the family historians out there, because I know that she knew you'd appreciate what she's been working on. And you can watch the premiere of Who Do You Think You Are on Friday, March 5th of 2010 on NBC. It starts at 8 o'clock. Be sure and set your DVR or your TiVo or whatever it is you do, get some popcorn and bring the family around and sit down and have a wonderful time. That first episode will feature Sarah Jessica Parker, as she talked about. And as you heard, I told her, we're all behind her. Those of us who love genealogy are behind her. It's really nice to see some quality television come to the television. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of channels out there, and the noise is kind of deafening. And it's really nice to see NBC and a celebrity of Lisa's stature get behind a project like this and bring it to the States and know that people here in the U.S. will appreciate it. So here's what I want to encourage you to do. I'm guessing you enjoyed this interview. Well, I'll bet that other folks that you know will too. If nothing else, they're going to know Lisa from all her years on Friends. I mean, who doesn't love Lisa Kudrow? So send them an email, and I'll have a link in the show notes for you to do this. Send them an email with the link to this episode. Encourage them to take a listen. You don't even have to tell them it's about family history if you don't want to. But everybody you know, get out your email contact list, head to Facebook and jot down a post about how much you enjoyed the interview and give them a link to it so they can come and listen to it. Let's get people excited and ready to watch Who Do You Think You Are? The thing is, if they get the audience, there's going to be more episodes and they'll get picked up for the fall. And as Lisa said, you never know. It's really all in the numbers. So let's give them the numbers. Head to the show notes. You can get the URL address specifically for this podcast episode. Email it out to your friends. Post it on Twitter, post it on Facebook. How about this? If you're a member of a genealogy society, make sure that your email newsletter or your email list person puts a little paragraph in about this episode and encourage people to listen and then tune into the show. That way, they really will catch on to the excitement and get behind this new series. So check it out. Friday, March 5th on NBC at 8 p.m. And then stay tuned to the podcast. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you think of the show, what you like, what you learned. Drop me a line, genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com. Or better yet, leave a voicemail message, 925-272-4021. And let's have that two-way conversation about who do you think you are. You know, I love bringing these genealogical gems to you that help boost your research and build a strong family tree. And it's important to me to always have free podcasts available so that everyone can participate. If you enjoy these free shows and you would like to help me cover the costs of bringing them to you each week, there's a really easy way to do that won't cost you a thing. By coming to my website at genealogygems.tv whenever you need to do some shopping online and accessing your favorite stores and websites through the links that you find on my site, you financially support the show. The price you pay is exactly the same, but Genealogy Gems receives a small percentage for referring you. It's just that simple. Amazon is one of my all-time favorite places to shop online. They have just about everything and at incredibly competitive prices. So next time you're looking for books, DVDs, software, electronics, apparel, pretty much anything at all, head to genealogygems.tv and click the Amazon ad that you find on the homepage or throughout the website. And these free podcasts will benefit by any shopping that you do. And you will get the same super low prices. Everybody wins. So if you enjoyed the Genealogy Gems podcast and the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast, let your mouse do the shopping through the ads and links on the Genealogy Gems website, and together we'll keep new episodes coming for a long time to come. Thanks so much for joining me for episode 81 of the Genealogy Gems podcast. And a very special thank you to Lisa Kudrow for being on the show. I hope that I will see you in the upcoming webinar that I'm going to be teaching for Family Tree Magazine. It's called Search Engine Tips and Tricks, Google Techniques to Boost Your Research. That's going to be on Tuesday, February 23rd, 2010 at 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Eastern. So for more information on how to participate in that webinar, go to familytreemagazine.com. And finally, many of you have written in asking about the status of the Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast. As you know, the last episode was done back in November of 2009. Well, as you also remember, I started that podcast as sort of a Genealogy 101 tutorial. I just wanted to be sure that if anybody out there wants to learn about how to do their family history, they could listen to episode number 1 and by the end of that series be up to speed and ready to join us over here on the Genealogy Gems podcast. Well, little did I realize how many of you experienced researchers were also really enjoying the show and getting a chance to brush up on some basics. Well, I've loved doing the show, but I do feel like it sort of reached a natural conclusion. And I think that those listeners that were new to family history, who've listened to the Family History podcast, are going to be able to jump right in now to Genealogy Gems and keep moving forward. So I'm going to be producing one final episode probably in the next few weeks just to wrap things up, so stay tuned for that. And the good news is that wrapping up that podcast means I'm going to have more time for this podcast. And what I hope that will mean is a new episode just about every week. That's my goal. And I also will be including longer segments that really go in depth into the various areas of genealogy, just like we did in the Family History podcast. I know that you enjoyed those in-depth segments, and I really enjoyed having the time and the space to do them. So my goal for 2010 is that the Genealogy Gems podcast is going to be the best of both podcast worlds. And I am so glad that you are with me for the ride. Thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.